Hello, I'd like to take us through the October 2019 elementary and middle school coordinators information that we covered in the meeting just earlier this week. So I will get started right away. As always, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Sarah Wallner or myself. So we'll start by going through the slides, and if you have any questions, please connect with us. So we will, once we gather together, one of the most important things I feel is making sure that A, you know each other, and B, we get a chance to ask questions, because oftentimes when you have a question, someone else has a question. Same one too. The agenda of our meeting today is that we're going to talk about finishing up map testing for the fall. We'll touch base on Goget. We'll preview the Apple assessment, which is for DBE and DLI classrooms only. And finally, we'll spend some time working on access and alternate access testing. That will be coming up in December, but there are some critical dates prior to that. All right, map testing. Some things to be aware of. First of all, when you finish up a test, it could be that the student didn't actually finish. There are three things that would cause a student to not show up in the data. First of all, a suspended test. Suspended tests are if a student happens to close their Chromebook and say, I'm done. You could have stopped their test at some point for whatever reason. Automatically, what happens is the test is suspended. This means that they can return back to the same point of the test where they left off. It will be the same difficulty of the question, level of the question, but it won't necessarily be the same question. There's a whole process that we have posted on our website talking about how to restart a suspended test. However, keep in mind that after 28 calendar days, not school days, but calendar days, that the student does not finish that up, then the test is terminated. We just reached that at the end of our 5-week window. So if a student started on day 1 and is planning on being finished at the last day of the window, most likely their test will be gone. There will be no record of the test. The vendor cannot go back in and say, oh, we're going to restart this test or continue where you left off, or we'll use this score. It's gone. Which is exactly the same what happens with a terminated test. Terminated tests mean just simply that. Student, for whatever reason, you decide that the student's test is not something that needs to be recorded. The test is terminated, it disappears, there is no record of it, it does not appear in the scoring, so the score reports. So essentially what happened is the test was taken by the student, time was given to the testing for no outcome, for no purpose. New this year, however, is test invalidation. This is if the student goes too fast. What I'd like to point out is on this particular student example, this is actually a student example from this year. We have a student who's rapid guessed. Hang on just a second. Rapid guessed 32% of the time. It took them 25 minutes to do this. Oftentimes we think of someone rapid guessing as being done in 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes. However, this student took 25. What does that mean? It means that they guessed very quickly on about a third of the test, stopped and waited, and waited, and waited, and then continued on testing. The effect on their score is this particular student's case is a 3. Their score dropped by 3 RIT points. Now, you may or may not think of that's very much. I have to tell you that this student is a middle school student, and typical growth in an entire year is often 3 to 5 points. So right now, this student is already behind. In fact, because of their score, their RIT score, they are in a spot that is not advantageous to them at all. So the effect of rapid guessing not only invalidated this test, but also you can see how it would affect their score. You can see this. This will be on the student's report, individual student report. However, it will not be recorded in IC. It does not come down with data that we download for the district. It will not appear on a family report. This would be the only place, this tab would be the only place that you will find this particular data. Is the 201 a valid, relevant score? No, it is not, but it should give you an idea of where the student is at. So I would take this and say 201 plus the 3 RIT, the student is somewhere in the area of 204. You'll notice that the standard error also is plus or minus 3. So we end up having potentially a pretty big swing based on the fact that the student guessed rapidly and ended up dropping by 3 points because of that. So once again, you can make sure that the students slow down. They can retest. And in fact, one of the things you can do to find out who, if anyone, is actually falling into these categories is to use the test history search. You'll note that this is from the menu choice that allows you to set up sessions. There is a tab called Test History Search. Most often people use the student search. Select your school, the grade, the instructor, if you want, the test, and then you have a choice of finding out 3 things. Number 1 is the status. Have they tested yet? Do they have a suspended test? Some students will finish a test and then start a second test. Please do not finish a second test for a student. Leave it as a suspended test and it will disappear after 28 days. The third part of this is the test engagement, the rapid guessing component. So you can create a list of students to see whether or not any of the students in your school have actually fallen into this category and who those students are. All right, let's move on. As we end the testing session, the window closes Friday, October 18th at 4 p.m. There will not be any exceptions to that. Scores taken on tests, if you give a test after that, will not be recorded in IC. They will not be recorded in reports that are sent home, etc. Data will be available in Infinite Campus and in Data Dashboard by approximately Friday, October 25th. Question always becomes, what do we do about results? So in the fall, typically what we do is we send one single set of reports to schools to be shared with families at parent-teacher conferences, not to be mailed home, not to be put in CUME folders, but in fact just to be used by staff and shared with families. We will continue to do that this year. The documents will be sent most likely by Tuesday. Well, that would be roughly the 22nd of October, somewhere in that neighborhood, to printing services, and as quickly as they can get it done, they will get it to you. So that's how we go about ending up this map season and information about what's going to happen with the data. EduClimber has the data in it currently. It is not the data that is considered to be the final data by the district, as the data has not been cleaned. There could be duplicates, there could be some confusing information that's in there. So if you're going to make serious decisions, please wait until after October 25th to make those decisions based on MAP. Real quickly, PALS. Results for PALS should be printed at the school level. There is a Printing PALS Reports for Families document on our website. Please share that with families at parent-teacher conferences. This will be for first and second grade. If you have some 4K or K classrooms that are completed prior to family conferences, please feel free to print those. Unfortunately, we cannot print these at the district level, as it really is based on a classroom level view of everything. So again, take a look at our website under PALS. You'll see a section how to print PALS reports for families. Continuing on. Goget Screener this year was different. It was grade 2 only. We changed a lot of things. It was electronic only. We changed the time of year. We moved it up by well over a month. So I'm looking for feedback. I need the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is. Please make sure that you email me any feedback that you have so that we can improve what we do for our staff, for our students, for our families regarding Goget. Results will be mailed out. The screener itself closed on the 11th. We're working on getting those results mailed out to families. They should be out by the middle of November. Moving on. For those schools with dual language immersion and for DBE classrooms, the Apple, which is a language proficiency assessment, will be given between November 4th and the 29th of November, so mostly the month of November. This year, we're working hard to ensure that all staff have access, know how to get data, know where to find things, and in an easy, timely manner. Keep in mind that these tests are ticket-driven, that they require Chromebooks and headsets. There's not an app. Students will have an address that they type in that will actually become a testing site. There's a recommendation for both Apple and for Access. Whenever students speak, please make sure that they are speaking clearly, loud enough, and long enough. East High School has a great piece that they do with their students with the Access. They say, when you get done speaking, answering a question, and you think you're done, add 2 more sentences. Again, right or wrong answers are not critical to scoring the Apple or the Access. It's the quality and the quantity of speaking. So if you are asked a simple question, yes, no, and that's all you answer, that's fine. But if you're asked to go further and tell why do you think that this is true, make sure that you're responding, the students are responding with more information. More is better. So Apple, again, is going to be for grades 3 through 8 in the fall. Grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will have the interpersonal listening and speaking. Grade 8 actually and above will have the interpersonal listening, interpretive listening, interpretive reading, and the writing components. That information is shared in a document by OMGE. We're working together on this and hopefully have a much better experience for everyone using Apple. The documents themselves kind of look like this: 3 through 8, MMSD teacher guidelines for Apple. Same thing, they're with the grade 8. So there is a different document in each one of these. There's slightly different professional development, and we're working on ensuring that everybody has access to these accounts. Again, with questions regarding Apple, please feel free to send me an email, call me, and we'll work on it together. I work on it with OMGE, and we'll get you an answer as quickly as possible. And now the big piece for today, actually the date on this is wrong. It should be Access for the 2019-2020 school year. You'll recall that last year we had a new WIDA website just about this time last year. The WIDA website has many, many more resources this year than they had last year. So it's a really powerful piece. It's a great website. The address for this is below, wida.wisc.edu. When you get there, we'll take a look at that. One of the pieces that's really important is up here in this corner. If you want resources, click on the members states and choose Wisconsin, and it will give you Wisconsin-specific access resources, also alternate access resources. The reason that this is important is that there are 35 states that actually give the access assessment and each one has a slightly different take on how it's done and what's important, what's not. So make sure that you're reading Wisconsin information versus any other state. Now, the timeline for access this year is as follows. From now until November 1st, so we only have a short little piece of time right now, you should be thinking about some of the preparations. Make sure that OASIS is updated for students who have IEPs or 504s, and all of that is in there, and begin professional development. From the 1st of November through the 2nd of December, so that month, again, focus will be on professional development, but you can start scheduling, figuring out when things are going to happen, and get final preparations in place. Because on December 2nd through the 31st of January 2020, that is the window for the test itself. So let's focus on what's going to happen soon, and we'll work out from there. First of all, OASIS deadlines. Please make sure that the accommodations are in place in OASIS. We will pull those, and we'll be sharing that list with you. And the difference this year is that we're not going to ask you to make any decisions or to review the list and to look for things to change. We're going to assume that everything is correct in OASIS. We're sending this out of courtesy to you so that you say, oh, yes, these are all our students, or look, Tim is missing for whatever reason. If there are open IEPs, that will also be listed on this sheet. Another thing that's going to be happening, and this may be especially for younger students, students who have IEPs or IEPs that have changed might be identified for the alternate access rather than the access assessment. The critical piece, the key piece for how do you know the difference is answered by the question, what standards are the students being taught to? So if they are being taught to the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards, the Common Core, then they will be taking the access assessment. If they are not, they're being taught to alternate standards that the state has set up, then they would be qualifying for the alternate access and be appropriate then. So again, anticipated student list, we'll be getting those out to you. Remember that all ELs should be must take access. How do you know if a student is an EL? Well, if they're not identified yet, if they walk in the door, we need to go through the same identification process that we typically use at the beginning of the year. That is, take a look at the home language survey, make a decision whether or not screening needs to be taken, screening needs to be done, give the student the WIDA screener, determine based on the results of the WIDA screener whether or not they are English learners. If they are, then they will be set to take the access for ELS test. If they're not to worry. So in general, what's going on during this time is begin to think about location, who are the staff that are going to be involved, because they will also need the professional development and the technology. We will be using Chromebooks and headsets, as we had mentioned. Some other things. First of all, a change from DPI. Last year, the year before, we said every 2 years you need to certify. No, that's every year. We need to make sure that every person who's giving access is certified on an annual basis. So that will mean you go into the WIDA website, log in, do the specific training, take the quiz, get a certificate. Those staff who have been involved in scoring the speaking portion of the WIDA screener have already taken some of the assessment, some of the professional development. Again, if a student is taking the regular access test, there is no scoring of speaking. However, students who take the alternate access will have their speaking scored locally. So those people will need to be trained in certifying the quizzes on how to score. DRC AMS, the website for looking through this and for coordinators, will be up to date in the next month. We'll send you information when you're able to log in. Why November 1st? This is a critical date. So again, student information, the most critical part is to ensure that student information is uploaded correctly into OASIS, because if we have to make sure that IC is correct by November 1st, on the 4th of November, DPI will upload that. On the 5th of November, all the students will appear in WIDA AMS. So it's going to happen very quickly. They will be in sessions already, as those of you that have experienced this know, we'll be ready to roll. So it's critical that between now and November 1st, we take care of this. As a courtesy, because these folks help you out in so many ways, please connect with your building tech to let them know when you're going to first test, so that they can help schedule and be on site to support you in case there's any issues with technology. Now, the following month, November 1st through the 2nd, is really a critical time for professional development. Make sure that you do have a certificate of completion. You don't need to print that out and send that to me. You don't need to let me know, because I can go in and check. So I will be checking at each building level to ensure that people are in fact doing the certificate of completion. You are doing the professional development. And if there are concerns, I will be connecting with you and staff in your building. Tickets will be arriving during this time frame, probably closer to the window opening, the end of the week right after Thanksgiving. We don't get them until shortly before Thanksgiving. Tickets will be printed, different colors for different sessions. Please keep in mind that if there are changes to a student's IEP, that if there's some supports that or accommodations that they are going to need, that a change occurs. Once we get to this point of November 1st, any changes after that will need to be taken care of manually. We'll need to make sure that we go in and manually change what is set up for the students. What that does is it causes the ticket that originally came with that for that student to be no good, because that ticket is connected to the old supports and accommodations. If there are new ones that happen at any point during the assessment, let us know. We will make those changes and say, okay, you're good to print out a ticket. So keep in mind that we need to make sure that we're using the most current, most recent tickets. All right, let's see, we're going to continue on. So there are questions, there are practice tests. If you are especially dealing with younger students or students who are new to the country, who've never taken Access, it might be a good idea to provide them some practice time so that they have an understanding of what's coming. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. One of the critical pieces is that as far as practice is concerned, again, I want to go back to speaking. It used to be that writing was the lowest score on the Access domains that we had in the district. Turns out that has changed in the last 2 years. Speaking is now by far the lowest domain score. So it's critical that students really understand what's going on and know what they have to do, and that, again, they're speaking loudly enough, they're speaking clearly enough, and they are speaking enough with enough material so that they actually will get a score, an improved score. Reminder about single test domains. They must be completed on the same day that you start. You can start in the morning, finishing it up in the afternoon after lunch. You just can't start it in the afternoon and expect it to be there ready to roll in the morning. That will not work. So single domain starts one day, ends the same day. The Access assessment, so all 4 domains, can happen over any amount of time within the window. All right. Now, the test window. Please remember that listening and reading are the required first components of Access. You will get tickets for both of these. The reports that are created after the students have finished listening and reading determine what levels of writing and speaking the students are at. So if you look over on the other side here, on the right-hand side of this, we have for speaking, you can have students in small groups. Doesn't matter what level they're at. as long as they are in small groups. Do not try this in groups of larger than 10 for a couple of reasons. Number one, the wireless capacity to continue, because audio is a very intensive technology issue. So we have issues there. But the second is also, if you have a large group of students, there's a lot of background noise. And so their voice, especially if they're speaking softly, gets lost in the sounds of the room and cannot be scored. You can mix levels of students for speaking. You can mix them for listening and reading, okay? However, you cannot mix students in groups when they have two different tiers of the writing component. So a student has a tier A, that takes approximately 45 minutes. Students with tier B, C takes approximately 60 minutes. What we don't want happening is let's say a group of 6 students, half and half. 3 students are tier A. They finish in about 45 minutes. They say, we're done, get up and leave. And the 3 students who are in BC are actually the students who will look and say, what's going on? How come I'm not finished? And then hurry up and try and finish up. So we want them to do the best that they possibly can. So we need to make sure that we only provide students with similar kinds of tiers to do the writing. Again, once again, headphones for listening, headsets with the microphones for any of the speaking components. In general, the time is going to be listening and reading 40 and 35 minutes. Speaking is timed at 30 minutes. Very few students take the full 30 minutes, but keep in mind that that is the limit that they have. And again, the writing depends on which tier you're in, either 45 minutes for tier A or 60 minutes for tier B, C. This is what it looks like when students will log in. I want you to keep in mind that we are working with the access test, not the Goget Screener. Please note that there is a practice test that they can click on and it take them through, and you get to pick which portion, which domain it is that you actually practice. There will be a user name and password that is given. It will be something like test 1, 2, 3, 4. It will be written on the practice test screen. Also note that the test demo, which you'll see down here at the bottom, is something that is typically shows how the accommodations work. It's videos. It is not something that you have to show students unless you feel it's critically important. Now, a couple comments about alternate access. We don't have a lot of students who are doing alternate access in general. Across the district, we have close to 5,000 students who are doing the access test. We have about 200 that are doing the alternate access. Given that, however, we need to ensure that students who are given the alternate access are allowed to produce the best possible results that they can. So the question always comes up to me, who is supposed to give the alternate access? My established response is, who has the best relationship with the student? The options are typically, is it going to be the CC teacher, or is it going to be the BRT, the ESL teacher, the classroom teacher in a DLI situation, et cetera? So it's a tough call because every single case is different. The best response that I've heard so far has been this: both people will be responsible. The person who is trained in languages can be the one who has gone through the certification process, and they can actually run the alternate assessment test. The CC teacher typically will probably be there to support the student and encourage them as they move forward throughout this test, because they know signs of when a student is becoming frustrated, when they are doing well. So a team approach is actually probably the best option for giving students the best opportunity for the alternate access test. Okay, so we're finished for today. If you have questions, concerns, if you have feedback about COGAT or anything else, please contact me. My information is here. Sarah Wallner's information is here as well. Look forward to working with you as we go through this access assessment season. If you have any questions, you've got my number. So